I want to start by giving sort of a historical review. You may recall that I shared with the advisory board that back last year I entered into a conversation, ongoing dialogue with Brent Sherman of Esri to talk about our contract terms and to also talk about some of the things that we were working on here in Tippecanoe County and to just get an idea of the scope of services that are provided to Tippecanoe County by Esri as one of our vendors. And one of the things that Brent and I talked about was coming up with a path forward when it comes to Esri-related issues or GIS-related issues, and he shared that Esri did indeed provide that service, and what the launch of that process looked like back in 2021 was a series of Zoom meetings at that time because of the pandemic between Esri staff and between elected officials and appointed officials throughout county government, those with heavy lifting responsibilities in the GIS world. Those meetings went on into December, and unfortunately the person who was our main contact, Brent Sherman, left Esri and went to work for another company in government services industry. And the good news is, while we were sad to lose him with the process, his partner in this, Mitch Winicki, actually stepped forward, and we began talking shortly after Brent's departure. And I was happy to find out that Esri had softened their travel restrictions, and the reason that we ended up moving this meeting was so that we could take advantage of Mitch's availability to have him actually come here and do some in-person meetings and present to the board during today's meeting. So the goal is today for him to give us sort of an executive level overview of some of the things that he has been working on with various department heads and elected appointed officials and their staff members. So we're going to get to that shortly, but I would be remiss not to share my gratitude to both Eric and James for some of their work, incredible work, and I think most of you have probably already know this, but our assessor's office did receive the Sag Award, which is a special achievement in geographic services based on some of their work. They are one of our power users when it comes to the world of data and using a GIS system to basically provide services. So again, I don't know that we had specifically mentioned that in a previous meeting, but congratulations on that. And the goal of the meetings that we've had recently basically are based on 4 pillars. And the first was an opportunity for Esri to learn from our staff and what they do on a day in and day out basis. The second was for our staff to learn more about the tools that are available from Esri, our partner. The third was looking at there have been some very fair questions asked about the costs associated with providing GIS services. And I think I've shared with this board before that it is sometimes confusing early on to understand GIS. And in fact, I think even David Hiddle, who's fairly new to county government, said as much in a recent meeting that sometimes the stuff can be a little overwhelming and a lot at one time to those of us who don't use it, but I'm under no illusion that people who don't work with the tools are ever going to fully understand, but the idea is to have a basic understanding so you can support the staff who do work daily in those endeavors. So Eric asked a fair question, and I think some others have as well about the financial piece. That is the third pillar. It's an important pillar in this discussion. And to that end, Max has worked with Bob Plantinga, our county auditor, and they've come up with some initial figures on what our investment is in terms of software, looking at 2022 numbers and looking at personnel and things of that nature, and even going to the point where there were discussions, Max had discussions with staff members who were involved in the GIS process to kind of get a loose total of the amount of time that they spend in their work life working on GIS. And it won't be perfect, but it will be the best view that we have to date on the actual costs, and my goal would be to have that ready for presentation at our next advisory board meeting. The fourth and final pillar, as I turn it over to Mitch, is having Esri actually help us chart a path forward that gives us an opportunity to leverage some pretty incredible technology to benefit our internal and external customers. And we've seen some of that in play already, and I'm excited to learn what the future holds for us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mitch with one simple request. We know that you have the background in network infrastructure, and I know from our meetings that you are very passionate about all things GIS, and specifically with Esri. But I would like to, as I've gotten to know you on a personal level, if you wouldn't mind just sharing just quickly about how you got to where you are today and some of your hobbies, because they are fascinating. So,
thanks, Tracy. In a nutshell, I've always been kind of a science geek. So that went from honors classes in high school to college. I bounced around in college from a small school in southern Minnesota to Montana State to Woods Hole Oceanographical Institute in Massachusetts, the world's foremost oceanographical institute. Sailed around the Caribbean my sophomore year in a 167-foot schooner conducting my own research looking for a benthic crab. Made my way, studied abroad in Morocco, studying Islam my senior year. Then got into mountaineering after that. Climbed the highest peak in North Africa. After college, then making my way to working for the Bureau of Indian Affairs in Oklahoma, doing botany work, things like that. Then after that, making my way to Catalina Island off the coast of Southern California, doing similar invasive species mapping, botany work, things like that. Then making my way to Alaska as a cadastral survey technician. I saw all of Alaska below the Arctic Circle, from the Bering Sea, Yupik Indian villages, to the border of Canada. We had our own helicopters, planes, fleet of vehicles, you name it. While I was there, the deal with my boss is that he would give me enough time to climb Denali. And so over a 20-day expedition on July 4th, 2006, I summited Denali. Most of my 20 days on the mountain were spent solo. And then after that, facing reality, having come back to my home state of Minneapolis, where I had to work in a call center for a few years and actually make some real money, face the real world. And then really rediscovering my passion, where it's science and mapping, helping government organizations. Then having worked for the federal government, Department of Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs. I worked for the state of Minnesota, Minnesota legislature. I worked for several counties in Minnesota. I worked for several cities in Minnesota. And then I worked for what I like to call the fifth level of government, which is a government consortium. It was called LOGIS, Local Government Information Systems, based out of Minneapolis. And what I like to say, for lack of better terms, it was a central nerdery where all these governments would just pay a little bit of money and we would provide all their IT services, and we could do it for a far lower cost than any consulting service around. And then going into a little bit about my hobbies, rediscovering my passion for mountaineering. In 2017, climbing the highest peak in the lower 48, Mount Whitney, then climbing Half Dome in Yosemite Valley. 24 hours later, in 2018, I ended up soloing Mount Rainier. That's a whole nother story. And then 2019, me and a friend did a traverse of the third highest point in North America, Pico de Orizaba. It lies 4 hours southeast of Mexico City. So we did a traverse of the mountain, which goes up one side and down the other side. And then right before the world shut down due to the pandemic, we traveled to Ecuador, climbed the two highest points in that country. One, Cotopaxi, is about 19,500 feet, and the highest point in that country is Chimborazo, about almost 21,000 feet. So a little bit about me, happy to be here. As Tracy said, I'm very passionate about GIS, all things science. But the reason we're here today is to deliver kind of we're going to deliver the executive summary. We're going to go over some of the findings that we found by working with your organization. And then I'm going to go into just a few customer examples from throughout the country, having worked now in 15 different states over my short 5-year career with Esri. We've kind of seen it all. So something I'm very passionate about is working with, local government, people like yourselves. Before we get started, though, I would like to commend the assessing group, Eric and James. I think it's very important that everyone here knows that these people are celebrities at Esri. When our team of we call it land records people, when they go in to any organization in America, city, county, anything like that, and we want to wow them, we show them your site. Your site has been seen, your assessing site has been seen by more people than you can imagine. I'm talking tens of thousands of people from across the country. And rightly so. You want a Sag Award for that? That's the Special Achievements in GIS, given by our company. That's the highest award that you can receive in this industry. So, good on you guys. That's awesome. But what we're here to do today is, what we have found in this company is that it's a little bit of knock on my company, but we haven't given our customers a decent path on how to go forwards. So what we have found is a lot of times, people like yourselves, people like Tracy, will hire an outside consultancy to come in here and do departmental interviews and then provide a list of recommendations, so that people like yourselves can go before a council and they can point to this document and say, see, we got to do this right here. And that can come with a price tag of upwards of $200,000, whilst I can come in here and essentially do the same thing from the source for free, because you are already invested in our technology. Everything I'm going to show you here today, you have it already. Yes, there will be some licensing conversation that take place down the road, but nothing I will show you here today is anything you can't do already. So before I get started on the findings, let's just briefly talk about who Esri is for those of you in the room that don't know anything about us. We're the world's leader in mapping. We're the Google of all things mapping. Okay, the company's been around since 1969. It is still run by our CEO and founder, Jack Dangermont. We're based out of Southern California, but I work out of a home office in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we provide products, all things mapping, and it's basically known as Arcgis. It's the world's leading mapping and location intelligence platform. We specifically cater to government organizations, although we have many clients in the private industry. Roughly 90% of all governments in North America, that's city, county, provincial governments, are already existing customers. And that number is even higher for the United States. So we're talking roughly 94 to 95% of government organizations in America are already our customers. So we're not talking about, this isn't a sales presentation. This is not me here to give you a dissertation on what you should and shouldn't be doing. Well, what I like to call this is the art of the possible. And after interviewing several of your, all of your departments, it's obvious that we could be doing things a little bit better. So what are we doing? We call this the Arcgis Roadmap. And once again, this is just a strategic initiative. We interview different departments and we say, here's how we think you could be using our technology a little bit better. And that's really all it is. And it comes from an authoritative source like us, Esri. So let's just go over some of the findings before I show you some examples. In general, these are blanket statements. GIS is an underutilized resource at the county. The county is rich in data, but poor in information. Talking with the highway department, you've got 15 plus years of historical information sitting in file cabinets or some database somewhere that someone may or may not know about. And so the point being is that we want to take that data and we want to make it into information. And part of this is what, some buzzwords, what we call the digital transformation. So we're transforming the way you operate. So if someone wants to come up in front of council and they want to say, we need to do these certain things, of course we're going to ask why would you do that? And the idea is here is that we could take that treasure trove of data that you have, turn it into information. What is that data telling us? Right now, we don't know. It's sitting in microfiche, file cabinets, some database somewhere that we may or may not know. So if we were able to take that data, turn it into information, what could that information tell us? And you'll see some examples of this. Interdepartmental, and I won't go through all these, I'm just going to touch on some, just the kind of the top ones that I've seen. So it's an underutilized resource. You're rich in data, but poor in information. There is an expressed interest, bullet point number 3, in the ownership of GIS by subject matter experts within each department to support their own growth. In the past, data's been consolidated in individual warehouses. So the GIS department, the highway department, they would have their own data, right? And it's my data and hands off, right? That goes away. We're thinking about it as completely different now. It's your data. You own it. I'll give you the tools. We can give you the tools to do everything that you need to do. I don't know how you, as the surveyor, are doing things, but what if I could provide you the tools to do what you need to do? And now you own the data. And by the way, now we can share that data with other departments that need it, because that is very obvious at the county here. That's another bullet point number 5 here. There is a need to utilize your GIS more effectively to support cross-divisional and inter-system information sharing and collaboration. A lot of buzzwords in there, huh? What do we mean by that? You've got data that I need. I've got data that you need. Can we collaborate somehow? There's got to be a better way. There is a better way, and it's with Esri. So, a couple different things here too. Moving up to bullet point number 4, the county should consider reviewing and rethinking many current workflows that require staff to review multiple systems and connect multiple departmental staff to get information that is needed. That was across the board. You've got data that I need, I've got data that you needed. How do we collaborate? Can we provide a platform? Can we provide one solution that I can just go to and view all the data that I need? This is not something new. Okay? And number 2, these problems are not exclusive to the county. These problems are not exclusive to the county. These are problems that I see across America. First step we're doing here today is talking about it. The next step is we're going to provide remediation to fix it. And that's going to be a game changer for you guys. And I won't go in depth on all of these, but the last one here, GIS will provide the platform for interdepartmental collaboration and constituent engagement. So we can collaborate internally as well as providing external-facing applications for the public. Now, we've gone into individual departments, and we've interviewed individual departments, and I've completed a list of recommendations for them, but I won't go into that because it's going to bore you to death. What I'd rather do is I'd rather show you examples from across America briefly about how other communities are using our technology. And oh, by the way, nothing I'm going to show you today is anything that you can't do already. You already have our technology. You already can do this. And some of you are. And it's changing the game. So first, what I'd like to share with you is the Office of Performance Management in Topeka, Kansas. This was a new initiative. I believe in 2018 they hired a director of performance management, and this was a new branch of the government. and it was all about performance management. So they had to come up with a plan about how they were going to measure that, right? It's not as easy as you may think. But what we did is using our technology and doing a series of screen shares, much like Kavita and I have done over the course of the last year and a half. I call it knowledge transfer. So in the digital world, I can share my screen, you can share your screen, and I can show you how to build things like this. So the Office of Performance Management built this site on their own, knowing nothing about GIS. They took the 6 strategic goals from the city, and they made a web page for each. And I'm not going to go into in depth here, but what I'd just like to show you is the city of Topeka invests in infrastructure. One may ask, how do they do it? It's all right here. How do you invest in infrastructure? Show me major streets under construction. We can link to a very dense capital improvement dashboard that can show me every planned as well as under construction capital improvement project in the entire county and city, also tying into budget and election cycles for each project. So a citizen can come in here and know this fire department is under construction and it's tied to this piece of legislation. Major streets under construction. We've got pavement condition index ratings for every square foot of pavement within the entire county. And the oh, by the way, with something like this is all linked up live. So if they had crews in the field right now and they were changing the index rating, you would see that change in real time. And that's kind of what we're talking about, is empowering the individual departments to do your job. As a surveyor, I don't want to guess on how you do your job. I just want to give you the tools to do it for yourself. If you need some help, Kavita and I are here. Let's do it. But we want to empower you to do your job. Government is such a what have you done for me today, as far as the citizens go. What have you done for me today, right? Number of potholes filled, cracks sealed by linear feet. The list goes on and on and on this page. 2 things I'm going to point out right now. Number 1, when people think of GIS, they think of a map, right? Geographic Information Systems, mapping. What's one thing we haven't seen here on this page? We haven't seen a map. It's because it's more than that. And then directing your attention to the right-hand side of the screen, we're not even halfway through the page. So if a citizen or a FOIA request or an independent journalist were to come in here and say, what have you done for me today? Look at the page. It's all there. The list can go on and on. It continues down. Completed lane miles by sweeping. It's all there. Once again, these are all live. These are all hooked up to applications. So when a foreman is in the field and they have their, whether it be Apple, Android, for some reason you're still using a BlackBerry, we are device agnostic. So when they are in the field, they can update these. We see these change in real time. Right? We're empowering the users to do their job. The next one I'm going to show with you is a 1-minute presentation from the city of Elgin, Illinois. This is a suburb of North Chicagoland area. A couple things about this is, number 1, when we envisioned this site didn't, the idea of this site didn't exist 2 years ago. It took us about 6 months to envision it, and then I helped them put the nuts and bolts together on the back end. And then, much like Kavita and I have done, I did a screen share with their director of communications. In 6 months, their director of communications, Christy Hilton, went from knowing nothing, absolutely nothing about GIS, to building this site. She built this site on her own through a series of knowledge shares that we did online, where I showed her how to use the tools, how to hook data up on the back end, and really bring that vision to life. Two other things about this site. It was a Sag Award winner. When we envisioned this site, our mission statement was to create the greatest, the best law enforcement transparency site in America. And I believe that we did it. I come from Minneapolis. Police transparency is on the radar 24/7. So this site means a lot to me. And we have no better promotional tool than what our clients are already doing. So I'm going to share this brief 1-minute video with you. Sure, you might have to show me how to do that.
The Elgin Police Department recognizes the importance of transparency in policing. This dashboard is intended.
All right. Did that pick up on audio okay? Okay. So this is their Director of Communications, once again, Christy Hilton. 6 months prior to us releasing this, she knew nothing about GIS.
The Elgin Police Department recognizes the importance of transparency in policing. This dashboard is intended to fulfill this crucial need in our community. Unless a data set is noted otherwise, dashboards are updated on 15-minute intervals. On the home screen, visitors will see the total dispatch calls for service with an ongoing comparison between call volume, use of force or show of force, and employee complaints. Within this highly interactive site, visitors can find officers for their neighborhoods or their schools, crime.
I'm just going to pause it right here. Look at the different tabs that we see. So we can see officers for our schools, neighborhood officers, beat officers. We're not showing where they are, but if I wanted to know who's representing my community and their phone number, great. It's all right here. So you'll notice that same theme as we move forward. When this is a quick 1-minute presentation. This is meant to be a dissertation. But you'll notice the same theme. You'll notice the tabs up on top. And that's another screen in there. So the idea is that we have one screen with historical information as well as current information. So we can create essentially one screen with treasure troves of information.
Information is provided for overall dispatched events, and specifics are provided for burglaries, traffic, incidents involving gunfire, homicides, including cold cases from 1971 forward. A sex offender search is also available. We know the public is interested in how the department responds to resistance during an incident. Analytics are provided for this,
Just to quickly pause right there. This morning, Max and I were in a meeting with your sheriff's department. He said verbatim, correct me if I'm wrong, this would change the way they operate. That's his statement.
Analytics are provided for this, as well as for complaints against our employees. Our intention is to continue expanding the data available in dashboards to ensure that the Elgin community has access to information that will strengthen the bond of trust between us and those that we serve.
We did the same thing for the fire department. They've got treasure troves of historical information. But once again, what is that data telling us? If it's sitting in a file cabinet somewhere and we want to print out a report, that's just a spreadsheet. I can give you a spreadsheet. Does that mean anything to you? Maybe. I don't know. When I print it out, I can tell you one thing. It's also obsolete. It's out of date the second I print it out. What if What if we could just hook it up to real time and provide historical records all in the same view? And when I speak with fire departments, police departments, public works directors all across America, they use dashboards to present in front of people like yourselves, in front of council, because that is the report. So they go to the web page, they pop up this dashboard, and they tell you the story here. Because this is a data-driven decision. I'm making this decision to do X, Y, and Z because we're all in agreement that that's what the data's showing us. Not me going rogue and saying, I want to build a septic district over here and we're thinking you want to consolidate control. No, the data's showing us that. We heard that from the health department this morning. As far as septic management, that this would change the way they operate. And for someone like me, I love hearing that. It changes the way you operate. This isn't new. Organizations across America are doing this. Last but not least, I'll just show you kind of a similar county, but we went through a very similar process with Peoria County, what we've done with Tippecanoe County. It was really a grassroots effort to get this thing kind of moving from the ground up. So once again, this site did not exist 2 years ago. It took us about 8 months to deploy this site. And the idea that we had for this site was that GIS as a technology is made to integrate data from everywhere. Everything a government organization like yourself does is geospatial in nature. And since we can integrate data from everywhere, why would we take this data and like move it over here and display it over here? It doesn't show well. Why wouldn't we just keep it in GIS? And so that was our idea with this site, is that we had a pretty extreme goal of saying to ourselves, you know, 95% of the people that would go to the government website is looking for data that we have, whether that be property information, police information, prescription drug drop boxes, whatever, you name it. It's geospatial data. So if John or Jane Q. Citizen went to Peoria County, Illinois, our goal was that they would end up on our site. They wouldn't end up on the county site. They would end up on our site because we had the information that they were looking for. And I'll show you a few examples here. Since COVID was on the hot button, they created an interactive dashboard. This is showing a little bit different. Let's see if it'll, in the projection it's showing a little bit different, but we essentially created a COVID dashboard that we embedded here so we can show all of the county's health information regarding COVID in one easy to use interface. And as I scroll down here, we've got some redistricting things going on. I know that's another hot button issue. Esri is the world's foremost leader in redistricting software. So we also work in that space too. And we've got some popular content here. So we've got some interactive maps, we've got some property information maps, tax districts, so on and so forth. But we'll just go in quickly because we had a very beneficial conversation with the health department minutes ago. And the reason I want to show you this is a couple reasons. Number one, we just met with the county health department. They said this would change the way they operate if they could do some of these things. Number two, similar like I've done with other communities, they built this site by themselves. Okay? Every year, Peoria County Health Department would hire an outside consulting firm to come in and create a publication-style quality pamphlet, and they would have charts and diagrams, and it would be publication-style, and it would cost them like $25,000 a year. They no longer do that because they can do it for themselves now. It's not that tough. We just showed them how. And you already had the tools to do it. So I can't tell you how many times I've walked into an organization and a public works director has said, oh, you know, we already have this. We bought it from this other community or this other private company. They came in here and wowed us and we bought it. And, you know, someone like Kavita and I would look at them and say, you already have this. We can do this already. Why'd you buy it? Why'd you buy it from that other company? So part of that is twofold. One, we need to know what's possible, right? So in that example, a public works director just needs to know what's possible. They need to know if someone comes in and wows them. Can we do that in GIS? Yeah, I know we can do that in GIS, but hey, I really like this solution. Great, that's an informed buying decision. And we owe it to our constituents in the community to have that knowledge. So without going too in-depth here, I'm just going to kind of go through. They have some statistics here, their mission and goals, but what I'd really like to show you is the dashboards that they built on their own. So we can see an opioid summary, charts, overdose mortality summary. So this is the one that I showed the health department that they said this would kind of change the game for them. And we did similar things. So let's keep in mind that we can do two things right now. This is publicly available, right? But what the health department wanted to do is they wanted to create a dashboard kind of like this, but privately. So that's our internal dashboard. So much like we saw the Elgin Police Department, they have a separate site that looks just like that, but it's used internally for investigations and analysis where we're linking everything. We're linking court records, right? So when one of my officers pulls up on a residence and it's a rental property, they automatically know it's a rental property. We tied court records to that rental property so that they know there's a violent criminal that lives there. So maybe, hey, maybe I want to call for backup before I go knock on that door. We can do all of this. So without giving you a dissertation, without boring you to death, I just kind of wanted to show you, we call this the art of the possible. Once again, there's nothing here that I showed you that you can't do right now. So with that, let's open up the table for questions. This is a Q&A. If you have questions, comments, Tracy, if there's anything you'd like me to address or show.
Yeah, back to your comment about us not being in a unique situation in terms of where we are right now.
Absolutely.
The desire to go somewhere else. Can you give us some idea of the scope of your work in Indiana with communities that we might be aware of, like-sized? I think it's always nice to have an idea just who you're working with and what that experience has been like. I mean, I would guess, I think you mentioned Whitestown, which is a small but growing community.
Yep, very much growing. They've got 5 planners in their planning department because it's suburban sprawl. They want to make sure they're doing it right. Fishers, Indiana, they don't have a single stoplight in that entire town. How do you think they did that? Analysis, mapping, planning, using our stuff. You name it, everyone is using our stuff. Terre Haute, Indiana is a great example. Allen County is one of a power user in America. Downstate, Evansville, Floyd County, Louisville Metro, downstate they've got a lot of power and they're doing a lot of great things with our technology. Every major suburb and community around the suburban ring, around Indianapolis is using our stuff. And most of those communities are in an enterprise agreement with Esri. Meaning an enterprise agreement is just based on your population level, you pay X amount. And we give you everything. It's not nickel and diming you for a user here and a user there and, oh, you got to buy a little bit more here if you want that. No, we'll just, here's the whole ship. Here you go. If you need help sailing that ship, call me. I think it's very interesting also to note like how I fit in at this company is I'm supposed to be the tech guy, right? I don't really like talking tech. I like talking business value. I like talking how this is going to impact your job, right? Let's not talk ones and zeros. Let's talk impact. Let's talk how this will affect your job. So it's kind of funny that I have almost 100% autonomy in my company. Meaning, so Tracy, if you called me 6 months from now and you said, hey, can you come here and just like help us like set this up? Sure. When do you need me there? That's sort of the reality in which I live. And I really like working for this company because of that level of autonomy. If Eric says, hey, I need help with this, can I give you a call? Yeah, anytime. Do you need me on site? I can be there. I can be there 2 weeks from now. So whether it be upstate, downstate, the Indianola region.
I would like to add something in that conversation. When Miss said, you can call me anytime, and that is true, because I've worked with him for a long time. We created what we have in the data set, how we can manage that, all the discussions, and he's true that whenever you can call me, and I will be ready for the answers. So I really trust that thing.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And it's true. I work with almost complete autonomy. So if Allen County calls me, if Kokomo calls me, if Evansville calls me, not only what do you need, do you need me to go there? I can just go there and help you out.
So looking, and this is the last question that I'll ask. So looking forward, you're going to, obviously you've met extensively prior to this week and now this week with some folks and done some catch up and then met for the first time. So you're going to have a final report.
Yes.
That you present to us, and we're going to, obviously we're going to share that. And the next thing for us, it sounds like, is for us to, we've got to address, a new contract basically with, and make some decisions on licensing and things of that nature to move us forward. And your report will have, in addition to the collaboration that you've spoken about today, are you going to make some recommendations as well in terms of the infrastructure, what it looks like, how it works, how departments work together to get to what your one slide showed about the collaboration between departments? You're going to make some concrete recommendations in that vein as well.
So we viewed the executive summary at the beginning. Those are kind of blanket statements. There's a lot of business jargon in there, a lot of buzzwords that may or may not mean a lot to you, right? It's just some buzzwords. But so what you're viewing here, these are specific recommendations that I have made to your organization based on our meetings together. And these are broken down by department. So we're just viewing emergency management. These are very specific recommendations to your emergency management department. The surveyor's office and I had some very good conversations yesterday. We have specific recommendations specific to that department. Furthermore, we also offer the pattern matrix to help just kind of conceptualize what we're talking about. So on the left-hand side, we have departments, and on the top side, we have, these are the 9 patterns of use in which I have identified how people use GIS. So Esri as a company has a whole department of nerds studying how people use GIS. And I use that term endearingly because I am one of those nerds. But bottom line is, so here's how it works, right? So if we're talking about, let's just talk about top line surveyor's department, right? Green is a substantial alignment in that pattern of use, and an orange is a partial alignment. We do not try to be all things to everyone. So there's some blank spaces in there, because I'm not going to try and pretend like we're all things to everyone. If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. We swim in our lane. But to give you guys kind of a back-end story of how things work in the inside of my company, is if we're viewing the top layer there, we have the 9 patterns of use. So that's this team that studies how would a surveyor use GIS. And what we do is, okay, the first one there, mapping and visualization. A surveyor would use GIS for mapping and visualization. How? And then what Esri does as a company is we make pre-built applications to satiate that need. So that means we've got point solutions to provide mapping and visualization techniques and applications to how a surveyor would use GIS. Okay, so these are out-of-the-box applications. Esri has approximately 400 pre-built applications ready right now. That the bottom line to you guys is that they're pre-built. Nobody, when we're talking about like coding and like, oh, I wanna build this application, so I go to my smartphone, it does this. We're not doing that. Nobody does that. We're not coding. We're not doing any of that. We've already got a pre-built solution for that. Load your data and go. That's how it works. So this is a part of our findings as well, right? So we've got the executive summary, which you saw earlier. We've got departmental recommendations. And then as you can see, this is like a 62-page document right here on kind of the techniques and how to get there. I'm going to be at Esri for quite some time, so I expect to continue working with every one of you.
Do you carry a phone with you when you're on a mountain?
Yes.
Okay, good.
My phone is actually 6 years old. So as much as I work in the realm of technology, I don't like technology that much, interestingly enough. But that phone has been with me on every mountain I've been on since 2017. All the pictures are taken with that phone. And just as a backstory, I recently gave the keynote speech at the Minnesota GIS conference, True Stories of Adventure by Mitch Winnicky. It's available on YouTube.
Thank you. I would, again, open it up to any questions or comments from the folks who have participated in the process or just have comments about things that Mitch has talked about today. So.
Some of the projects they showed we're already doing. We did a really great comprehensive study with the city of Lafayette on crime and infrastructure. So they were seeing if the infrastructure expenditures actually reduced the crime in the area and what the nature of the crime was. So a lot of stuff we've already got happening. And he had mentioned about the health department saying this is going to change the way we do things. Well, that statement could be, well, great, this is going to change the way we do things. Or it could be, oh, this is going to change the way we do things. So how is it that we're going to, I mean, the institute change, the change, let's make it a priority for these departments who have had this technology for many years and have done zero with it, even though some, I've been practically begging people. I've got people in the surveyor's office that have never logged into Arcgis online who say that they have a hard time using the watershed tool in Arc Pro, but there's a wonderful watershed tool, Arcgis Online, and they don't bother because somehow that's taboo to use that system. They're over in Portal, there's no watershed tool. So, and along those lines, so what I see the things that we're looking at in the future, so it shows these wonderful dashboards and these applications, and he's exactly right. You don't have to be a programmer. I'm not a programmer. I just drag and drop stuff and feed the data, and it's already there. The solution's already out there. But I'm looking at the county website, and I go to the GIS website, and prominently featured is a lookup for your voter registration history. And functionality aside, because it's very difficult to navigate, it has a bunch of parcel information, tax information, it has nothing to do with voter districts. So, but when I do finally find it, it's the wrong data. So before we go and move forward into these, this great world of new technology, what are we going to do about just the management of the data that we're publishing? We're currently publishing what on the site. When I go in, I don't see that we have an application for voter lookup that just does that. It shows you every district you're in, has a map of every district. It is current, it's up to date. But it's buried in this website, and what's prominently featured is one that So I don't know, some of this seems systemic, where who's in charge of it? Well, is it Julie that has to, in the clerk's office, who has to say, hey, somebody needs to take this garbage down, or prominently mark it as the old information? I think that's part of our issue is that nobody knows whose job it is. Julie doesn't believe that the IT department GIS people are her employees. She can't fire them. She can't do anything about it. She can't. So she ends up using another tool featuring on the clerk's page. So I can go to the election page and I can see a tool that actually works that shows me the precinct. But if I go to GIS page, I go to something that has the old maps, and it doesn't even have all of them. It doesn't have. We don't have county council districts. We don't have. But if we go over to the Arcgis Online Hub, I have all of the district maps on an easy-to-use lookup tool, but that information's buried, prominently featuring information that's old. So how do we address that? Before we said moving forward, like just cleaning house and saying these are things that let's have I think it gets to that policy question maybe is how long are we going to continue to publish the old? Is it going to be another 10 years? We're going to have the old precincts up, or are we going to have that up now that we're already past filing deadlines? People needed that technology 2 months ago. They needed that updated information 2 months ago, and we were able to provide it through our hub agreement. But that stuff isn't even being addressed or maintained on the other system. Some of our systems have users that haven't worked here in many years, that have accounts, and nobody's doing anything about that. So I guess before moving forward, is there a plan to kind of just look at where we're at and clean this stuff up? Because
I can add some commentary to that as well. Through working very in depth with your organization, two things are very apparent. One, addressing exactly what you just said there. Max has been working very hard on policy, and I have full confidence in you that will move forward to address some of these issues. But I think it's also very important, kind of to your point, James, is to say what's in the past is in the past, and we need to talk about what the path looks like ahead of us. And that'll be a part of what I'm doing. It's a part of what we're talking about here today, and it's a part of what Max will provide us in the future. And the last thing I'll say to that is I have a friend in St. Louis, Missouri, that teaches courses on executive leadership. And he starts his presentations, and it's on a big screen, and it says, "We do it this way because that's the way it's always been done," is not an appropriate answer. Wrong answer, try again. Hey, sometimes it is appropriate. I've got surveyors across America that they like doing pen and paper, and it works for them. We can do it in the digital environment, but if that works for you, maybe we don't want to change it. Maybe the next generation it will change. That's fine. If it works right now, maybe that's okay. But at least we're talking about it. But if we just sit here and say, we do it that way because that's the way it's always been done, wrong answer, try again.
Oh, come on.
This is on our website right now. If somebody goes to our
I understand,
website
I understand.
Now, they're going to be told they're the wrong voter. That's not acceptable. At some point, I don't know.
I understand.
So your message is like messianic. It's like do this, and your lives will be better. It's a game changer for everybody. Mm-hmm. Utopian almost, and it's awesome. I just think that obviously our use of GIS is at the best scratching the surface, especially our department. And so the first step is talk about it, and I think we're there. And the second step is provide remediation, which to me sounds like a Herculean task, a massive task. And how do we do that? Yeah. Because there are entrenched obstacles, there are cultural obstacles that have been around here for a long time that have historically kept this from happening. Mm-hmm. So what's different? You're a gifted speaker, and you make your case very well. but do we just call you back in Minneapolis, to guide us? Or what's different now?
Yeah, great point. So first off, what we're viewing here is the first step, is specific recommendations for individual departments, right? These are very dense recommendations to the untrained eye. So for someone like me, I can look at these recommendations and know, oh, this is easy. We got to do this. For someone like you to look at these recommendations, these are just buzzwords, right? So, right, it's you working with me and the whole Esri team to come up with that plan. So generally what that plan looks like is using these recommendations, much like we spoke with the health department this morning. We give them the idea of the art of the possible. Then we say, we don't do anything until we know what might change the way you operate. And then you give us a prioritized list of what things in what order mean the most to you. And so when we had conversations yesterday with the surveyors department, and we talked about things that would change the way they operate, it was very apparent that that list was kind of sorting itself out. And in general, what we do first is we go for low-hanging fruit. So I can identify things, and Kavita and I can identify things, and you can help us identify things that would be, boy, you said this would change the way you operate? I can do this for you in like an hour and a half, right? I could do it for you in the hour and a half, but that's not the plan. The plan would be to train Kavita on how to do it, to train you how to do it, right? And then we take away, in general, we do this low-hanging fruit stuff first, right? There's an overwhelming need for interdepartmental collaboration in this organization. And I would think that everything that we would do would kind of have, that would be part of our absolute mission statement of what we're looking to do, is increase interdepartmental collaboration to give you access to the data that you need in a usable format, as well as the other people within this organization that need your data.
And Esri will make that level of, I don't want to call it hand-holding, but it's sort of an intimate training. It's a deep thing. That level will be available. And I think, speaking for my department, we need a lot of it, and I think that the other departments would too, to get to where you're talking we can go.
Can I add something to that? When Mitch said about the getting back to the whatever your needs are and what he presented, so basically first we are trying to build our current GIS environment up to the point, or basically we are trying to upgrade our servers, the environment, the capacity, the performance wise, whatever the technical side, IT side, we need to build our GIS current environment, what Mitch is saying, to go up to that level first. Right now what the version we are using and the tools he are saying is not available in our current versions or the licenses. So basically we need to first progress into the licensing. We need to analyze our current agreement and make sure the current agreement is up to the point where we can basically consider all these tools in our current licenses. We cannot use whatever he's saying just because we are underutilizing and we are under agreement. First, we need to correct that part. When we correct our agreement, when we rebuild our current environment up to the point where we have the data, but we are not able to utilize that because of our performance issue or server is not up to the point where it should run. So when Mitch said, okay, I can give you the tool, but we have to make sure our current process can run that tool. And you cannot be able to see the problems when it gets loading issues. So we will first do that. Then we will make sure that whatever tools every department need, we have that. And then we will use those tools to build the current, what he showed in the slides.
Okay.
So that's basically the plan to go.
So build up the GIS infrastructure to where it needs to be.
Perfect.
That sounds easy. That's just a matter of doing it.
And that's not easy, but still
Okay.
it's doable.
But what comes after that is really difficult.
Drawing your attention to the diagram might help a little bit.
Yeah.
This is, to your point, this is not going to happen overnight. 6 months, this isn't going to happen over 6 months.
Yeah.
This is going to be a 2-year project.
we really need leadership here, because I've been here a year, and these meetings devolve into infighting and complaining, and there's really not a point person that says, you got to do it this way. And that's what we need.
Okay.
And that's the plan basically we come up to, that I'm also here for like last 2 years, and I'm also seeing the same thing what you are just mentioned. So that's why I saw the current GIS environment, how it is working, and that's where we come to the plan. We need to upgrade the system, then we need to upgrade the people and tell them, yes, we have now upgraded system and you can utilize the GIS based on that. Right now we are not offering that because I know we are underutilizing it, and if I provide the solution, it will not gonna happen because of the performance issue or the server capacity or whatever the IT terms are. So that's the way we have to go. For first couple of months, we have to basically concentrate on the GIS infrastructure. Then we have to focus on the tools. Then we have to focus how to add the data onto the tools. It's a long-term process. I understand that it will not gonna happen overnight. And under agreements, you know how agreements work. We have to revise all the agreements. We have to go for the new ones. And that's the 2 years plan which come up to.
And just another, I'll kind of add to your point there is, I hope that you've gathered from our conversations together that I do pride myself on giving you straightforward advice. I've worked in the government for over a decade, and part of my historic frustrations with this, my own company, is the lack of leadership, as you would say, and straightforward advice. Because there's a lot of variables in there, right? You know, so we generally, Esri just gives you this vanilla advice and says, here, you got to do it this way. It's not always that easy, right? So I hope that you've gathered that, you know, me as a resource, once again, I'd like to reiterate that I'll be at Esri for a long time. I don't plan on going anywhere, so I will be back here whenever you need me. But also, as Tracy can advocate, we've had offline conversations where he's gathered really good information from me, and that is an open invite to any one of you to utilize me as a resource, because going back, we historically just give you this vanilla information, right, without being like, no, you just do it this way. You got to do it this way. I would do it this way. This is the way you should do it, right? Businesses like myself, they are kind of afraid to do things like that. Having spent over a decade in government, I pride myself on giving you the absolute straightforward advice without sugarcoating it. And I think that's part of the reason why the Sheriff's Department liked us so much, Max.
This is incredibly stressful, this last couple minutes to listen to, and just see this 36-month time frame in which
I'm the same
in
way.
which a $1.5 million of GIS funds will be expended. In addition to, in the last 20 years, expending millions of dollars to what James pointed out, having a bunch of old non-functional stuff to show for it. I guess, you know, looking out 36 months for a collaboration plan, I say something I've said for years, full stop to funding this. Like, I mean, if there's a 3-year plan, we don't have the right, we invested how much on systems that are now, that we've done nothing with and now need to be upgraded? And what are we going to spend on those to upgrade? Like, this is wild to me that, like, with nothing to show for millions of dollars, we have another 36-month scope of work beginning back with hardware. I think this needs to be a really cost-based discussion on what it would cost to just use Arcgis Online and not have a bunch of equipment that goes obsolete that we have to upgrade. But and just something too that, like, you know, trying to forget about the past or whatever. Last night I went through and tried to answer your question of what do I want to do on Portal, because you mentioned there's still trust issues. We still can't be trusted to, you know, maybe admin Portal or be able to get access to the things we want to get access to. So these trust issues now, you told us, like, I could change it, I could give you access, but there's trust issues you have to meet about it, right? So I looked through, like, what nefarious things are we trying to do on Portal? I looked back at all my help tickets we submitted to be able to create tile maps, to be able to share maps publicly, to be able to add spreadsheets, to create APIs to the Canvas system, to create a world-class functional GIS system in 2019. And every single time we tried to contact Esri tech support, not you personally, and there was many help tickets we put in, we were met with a very friendly, knowledgeable person who consistently reached out to try to help us and told us what we were trying to do the system was capable of doing, but we didn't have the permissions, and constantly reached out to IT to please give us the permissions to work with the people who, for free, without some consultant, will help us get Portal running. I have a litany of emails telling us to not contact Esri tech support. And this is by Chris, who we paid a lot of money to create these de facto email written policies to specifically not contact Esri tech support for any reason, citing vague issues that he personally would fix that he never fixed or followed up on. My question, how much money do we pay him for the policies we have now? And are we supposed to just forget about what anyone emailed us in writing as of this point? Like, is that a motion? Any de facto policy in writing is now devoid because Max is working on it. Without saying that, I mean, I'm not just going to ignore something someone told me. We've had our hands slapped so many times for trying to reach out for them. Is that a motion I can make now, that we can use Esri tech support as a matter of policy? Yeah, it's really hard to be like, okay, these guys are going to help us. They've been trying to help us for years. And you should look at and the help tickets that we submitted that were transferred from Esri help tickets to IT help tickets were all deleted one day when they cleaned up without resolution. And we mentioned that to you, and although you said it was unacceptable to delete tickets without resolution, you never made them resolve the help tickets. So anyway, this is just incredibly stressful to hear about hardware when we tried for years, like 3 years ago, to try to set up the hardware when it was probably more relevant than it is now. I just can't imagine giving anyone a budget who's mismanaged what we have so poorly. So yeah, I mean, I feel like, and I don't know if this is complaining or infighting. We're talking about millions of dollars, that we've spent. These are fortunes. These are more money than some of us will make in our lifetimes. He could climb every mountain for the amount of money we blew on GIS in the last 2 years with nothing to show for it. I mean, I don't think it's petty, and I know everyone rolls their eyes when I complain about it. No one likes to hear about wasting millions of dollars, but that was a presentation. I couldn't even get through the first top of our GIS page in a full hour meeting, talking about how non-functional those tools are, how embarrassing they are to have them prominently posted. And I didn't scratch the surface. I mean, it's like hours and hours we could go on about why is this here? Why is it prominently posted? I think the minutes kind of get the heart of it, I guess, but I don't know. 3 years out, what's the budget for those 3 years? Yeah. I guess that's my question. And until anyone can tell that, I say full stop to agreeing to buying infrastructure or hardware. There's no scope of work here. Half the stuff we would do in Portal, couldn't we do those in Hub to see if it's something we even want to do if we maybe add credits or something?
You will not have the functionality that is required in this organization solely with the online Hub version. You will need an enterprise on site. Whether it's on site or hosted in the cloud, you need the power of on-premise ArcGIS Enterprise, and what you're currently using in the assessing department is ArcGIS Online/Hub, living in our infrastructure. No organization in America has one of each, unless they're very small. A very small town might just have the online version. They have both. We call that a hybrid deployment, and they're used harmoniously.
Didn't you say we already had everything that we needed to do this stuff right now?
Kind of.
But then I hear our GIS administrators say, we'll get to this when we have the things we need. I mean, people don't even log into ArcGIS Online that I've created accounts for because I knew it would help them in their job, and they have never even looked at it. So I mean, I think what Eric's saying is we're going to spend a lot more money to be. How do we know we're not going to be in the same boat 3 years from now? Only however much less money in our budget for it. They're not using the tools we have now.
That's something that will have to be determined internally. But the best advice that I can give you is have a vision. We're not trying to recreate the wheel. Yeah, when we had, we're not trying to recreate the wheel. Let's just take like what Topeka did. Let's just do what they did. All the tools are there, right? When I showed you the city of Elgin, Illinois for the transparency, we had the vision. That was our mission statement. Create the best police transparency site in America. That was our mission statement. So I think to your point, James, is we got to think big. We got to go outside the box. We got to think really big and let the nerds think about how we're going to get there, right? We can do that. We need your guidance on what's the most important, what's the most impactful thing that we can do to your business, but then we can kind of handle the nuts and bolts from there. You can do it, you can do it, you can do it. With my help, we can get there.
Both responses I got from IT was we're going to wait for the hardware, and then Max is working on a mission statement. We wrote a very comprehensive mission statement for our hub site. It took me 2 days. It's boilerplate stuff. I mean, I just went and found another county that had an awesome mission statement. I combined it with some stuff area planning had. We ran it by the county attorney. He said, great. You know, I mean, how long are we going to work on I mean, it's just actionable, and what are the time, we have a 36-month time frame, but in those next few baby steps, what do those look like?
Just to do some level setting here, I think what Kavita is talking about is more IT infrastructure side. That is something that Tracy is aware of. That's something Kavita is aware of. That's something that Kent is aware of. That's not something we're going to talk about here today. They're aware of the issues at play and the remediation that needs to take place.
I have one question I meant to ask earlier. Clearly, the assessor's needs are significant.
Absolutely.
In this, and it doesn't, in my mind, knowing what I do know, and there's still a lot I don't know or understand, that is probably going to be the same. Have you experienced the same thing in dealing with other counties?
Oh,
that
absolutely.
That the assessor's
Yes.
use is significant by comparison, and have they always been, the situation we have right now where Eric has Hub that he's utilizing, is that something that is common, that they're using Hub or they're using Arcgis in the cloud?
I said this at the beginning, and it holds true in this conversation more than ever. Across America, what the assessors or auditors department, depending on the state, what they do and what GIS does is generally a little bit separate, right? So assessor's department in general is almost completely autonomous from the GIS department. GIS, along with IT, is a services-oriented role. We are here to provide services to our constituents, both internal and external. That's how it works. We're a services-oriented role. In the state of Illinois, it is not uncommon for the assessor's department to have their own complete internal deployment of Arcgis Enterprise. The IT department will also have a separate internal deployment with servers, all that, and they are completely separate. They share different business systems, they share applications, they share data, but they are, for all intents and purposes of the conversation, especially in the state of Illinois, they are completely separate. So the problems that you face here, these are not isolated to this community. These are problems that everyone in America faces. Illinois is the same, Michigan is the same, Minnesota is the same. I've got clients in my home state of Minnesota that their assessing department is completely autonomous. Right, they're all kept under the wraps of the policies and procedures internal to that organization. But a lot of times, for instance, the assessor's department are such power users that if I was running your GIS program here, once again, how can I help? You need these services? You know what? You guys seem to know a lot. Let's just give you the tools to do what you need to do. And I don't want to guess on how you operate your business. Let's just give you the tools to do it for yourself. I'm here to support you. You need web services, you need internal hardware, whatever you need, man, we'll provide it for you. But anything above that is we're just going to get in the way.
much like Eric, when I look at that 36-month timetable, knowing where we came from, that seems daunting, but we have control over that.
You do.
I mean, there are things that once we address our licensing issues or our infrastructure issues, we can start picking the low dangling fruit department by department. And I think that's what I had suggested to Eric earlier, is it would be helpful if I had a list, I'm not talking about trust, if I had a list of what the needs are, so that we can champion that cause and move those needs along, make those a priority.
Absolutely. And, you know, just to do some level setting here too, 36 months, year and a half, that's not that long, right? We're already 2 years into the pandemic, believe it or not. 36 months to get here. 36 months until your sheriff's department, or less, till your sheriff's department has a business system that connects everything that they need, both internal to provide internal analysis and an external site to shift the narrative, is what we like to use. When we spoke with the sheriff's department this morning, we don't want to change the narrative of how they operate. Radical people change the narrative. We shift the narrative in our favor, right? So that's 36 months to get to here. You've got a full-blown operational site with real-time data and historic information. You've got, if you want it, your fire department has their own internal and external site for transparency to the public and analysis on the inside. 36 months to provide complex breakdown of septic sewer systems, point system leak systems of septic or sewer systems, opioid awareness. 36 months is not that long to get somewhere like here. That's my vision for Tippecanoe County, is that this is fully deployed. We're on the path to providing you with all the tools that you need. We're taking care of the low-hanging fruit first, and we have the goal, we have the vision of having the best, transparency site. We've got the best site in the whole Midwest. 36 months for something like that, for me personally, that's not outrageous. I hear what you're saying, Eric, but 36 months to come this far, to me, that's pretty impressive. Because we're not just talking about taking data from here and moving it here. We're talking about organizationally changing the way you operate in order to provide applications and services to help you do your job better. So 36 months, yeah, that sounds like a long time. Historically, I think it's important, going back to what I said earlier, is that I'm keeping my eye down the road. My eyes are not in the rearview mirror.
Down the road, my thing isn't the 36 months per se, or the timetable. It's that without any additional capital improvements, just the burning of 36 months is about $1.5 million in just dedicated GIS funds in the IT department, not to mention other GIS funds. So to me, it's the $1.5 million, not looking back at the probably $5 or $6 million we burnt, which is a total sunk cost, because we're starting over with a 36-month plan. But I think that, it sounds great to get there, but I guess my thing is, is this a 1.5+ infrastructure $1 million scope of work? Are all those costs necessary to get here? That's the part that's just the lack of fiscal controls and how long it took us to get to a point where we have a guy who might write a policy. I'm just very skeptical that, not so much of the scope of work and the time, because you're right, it does take time, and,
Yep.
and you're right, 3 years, if we're here, that's not long, that's awesome. But the money is deeply troubling.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'll also say a few things. In the last, 20 years, let's just take a step back 20 years in time. If we're talking about adding infrastructure, adding additional servers, cores, VMs, some of you in the room might not even know what that means, right? Those are sunk costs that are talking millions of dollars. Infrastructure's cheap. You want to spin up a new environment? You want to reorganize your entire architecture? Great. Let's spin up a new VM, a couple new virtual machines, connected and your Barracuda network on the back end. Once again, that probably doesn't mean a lot to you guys in the room that aren't technical, but infrastructure, storage, virtualized environments, these are cheap and they're accessible at the touch of a button. We could spin up your new cloud environment today, and with enough storage for that 20 years ago wasn't even dreamable. And now we can do it for pennies on the dollar. So I don't want to downplay what you're saying, because I understand that you have a very valid point, but in a virtualized environment, virtualized storage, cloud storage.
Oh, I guess that's my point, and that's more the question. I'm reading between the lines, so you're saying, look, this doesn't have to be very expensive. A lot of the stuff we're talking about buying isn't expensive.
Right.
A lot of your training is included in purchasing these technologies and subscriptions. It's the time it's going to take you guys to get people up to speed to realize their visions. I think the one thing that you have to have vision. That's what you said. You have to. I mean, you're not going to like have a vision for us and tell us how to be a better whatever it is we're doing. But and I guess that, are you going to help us kind of identify? Because like right now we're on this course where we just, no matter what we're doing, no matter what we're buying, no matter what the vision is, we're burning $500,000, right? And that's our decision. Like you have no idea what those costs or line items are, or maybe what subscription they are. I guess my point is like, in this 36-month roadmap, is there going to be some like hard costs, and maybe we can figure out our soft costs, but I guess like, is the plan just to like blank check for equipment, burn whatever money's already budgeted, and just continue that burn without looking at like how anything we're doing currently is tying into this 36-month road plan? Because that is totally us. Like, it is totally us to like not like think of a solution, throw a bunch of money at it while taking all the stuff that isn't working and increasing the funding to that as well. And I think that's kind of how we get here, is like when some system doesn't work, we buy a better one. But we never like talk about the system that, you know, we're trying to, like what went wrong with the last system we had, or what about the other systems people bought, and that's why we've ended up with so much stuff. But
I can add a little bit of input to that. So in a modern IT GIS environment, I'm kind of a car person. If your alternator breaks down on your car, are you going to go to YouTube and research how to fix it? And I don't know how to do that. Oh, the part's going to take 6 months to get here. I don't even know what I'm doing. I got to buy the tools to do it. I maybe need like another friend to look over my shoulder. The modern IT environment, buy it, hire someone else to install it. You don't know, you're concerned about a timeline? Let's budget more for that. That's the reality in which we live. Max and I, that's the reality. That's the modern trend. You're worried about that? Hire a consultancy to install it, right? I can provide a list off the top of my head right now of 5 consultancies in your back door that can do it for affordably. You could hire Esri to do it, but that's the Rolls Royce. You know, why drive the Rolls Royce when the F-150 will work just fine?
It made the last consultant think it's like hitting up little spreadsheets.
to that point, something you mentioned too about the using Esri as like a demonstrative presentation for council. Something that frustrates us is the city of Lafayette often lacks vision for a lot of things, and they'll hire consultants. Green Street Consulting out of Indianapolis is pretty prolific to basically do reports of like what they should do with chunks of the city. And Green Street will contact us to get information, which we pull from like Esri and give to them, that they put in a PDF and then charge the city of Lafayette $50,000 for stuff that we've given them access to on Esri. But they're like, I know when we don't care about these maps. I need Green Street to like put it in a chart that's already on the map. But I was like, that rang true, because we've like been like, just ask us for this stuff, and like we can work on these projects together instead of farming them out to contractors. So I appreciate those comments.
Once upon a time, I worked for a suburb of Minneapolis called Maple Grove. It's USA Today's top 10 places to live, like every other year. At one point, the city engineer and the public works director signed a $500,000 contract for Cartograph, which is an asset management system. Then didn't include IT or GIS in this conversation. Then walked into our office slapped it on the table and said, install this. You don't make those type of decisions for the people that are going to be installing it without us having a seat at the table. There was a point of contention for a long time. How dare you make that decision when you want it? At least include us on the conversation, because we're the ones that are going to install it and maintain it. Okay? Point being, these problems are not independent to this organization. Okay?
Add that if you want to call Mitch, if you need support or questions answered, by all means, reach out to him. I've found him to be very, very accessible, and there's no meter that I'm aware of. If there was, I would have broken it a long time ago, or at least exhausted it.
Don't tell my boss that.
Yeah, so I mean, I do encourage you, and no one should get in the way of that conversation.
Yeah.
You're our
Agreed.
You're our provider and our resource. That's not unique to my desk phone or David's. That is available to everyone.
I appreciate that.
I would like to make a motion. I motion that Max's project to create policy includes specifically what Tracy just said as a matter of policy, that no department will be reprimanded for utilizing Esri tech support with respect to products that we purchase from Esri, to something to that extent.
Okay, we have a motion.
Could you say the motion again?
No department shall be barred from communicating with Esri tech support in relation to products that the county or that department specifically purchases from Esri.
I agree with your sentiment. It feels like that kind of administrative action should probably be tied into the bigger thing that we're doing here.
That was my motion, to tie it into Max's bigger project. Not that it would be a standalone thing, or not that it would be active right now. It's just that, hey, I have in writing the exact opposite of that. Tracy is departing from that now in a public meeting that's being recorded. Having written policies that we say different things on is reprehensible. I mean, it's just like, it's not about trust now, right? Well, it was about trust yesterday, now it's not about. I mean, like, I think it's important to not say things that we don't mean. And if we're serious about letting people contact Esri tech support, then we should undo the verbiage in writing to not. And I'm not saying that should be a standalone policy, that we should make like a county ordinance about it. I'm just saying it should be included in Max's scope of work specifically.
A question for you, Mitch. I got to believe you that you have that kind of relationship with other customers too, where people can do that. So this is about access. I think I've said that from day one. I have shared that I'm beyond the trust thing. It's what people need at this point in time, and this seems to me like a reasonable request. You need help. You have something that helps you get your work done. Then so be it.
All I'm asking you to do is put what you say in writing.
Okay.
And just add some personal commentary. This is not the commentary of Mitch, the Esri employee. This is Mitch, the GIS user, public servant leader. I've been so impressed on what this assessing department has done and the level of knowledge that they have with regard to their data and how to utilize it in GIS. Personally, I would do whatever you say. As a personal viewpoint of what's going on in the county, not Mitch, the Esri employee, this is a personal viewpoint, I would do whatever you say.
I'm guessing you've never seen an assessing department that has this level of acumen and expertise in GIS.
I have not.
Yeah, it seems off the charts.
Yeah, it is.
Which is a blessing, and sometimes, a blessing and a curse. Who am I to say? Who am I to say that? I don't know what I'm talking about.
Let's be candid, it's a curse, man.
But I appreciate the sentiment of your resolution. The reason that I'm just a little bit hesitant is because it feels like we're about to put together a big new ball of something, and to just sort of do a piecemeal resolution to add to other piecemeal resolutions just doesn't feel administratively like the best tact, although I would hope that whatever we come up with certainly reflects what you're saying. Lisa, did you want to say something?
No, I agree with that, and I feel like I want to know what the vision is and what the roadmap is to get there, and this might be a good stop on the way to the road to the vision, but I think we need a vision and we need a roadmap first. And then, yeah, I'm kind of.
Yeah, and we've had this meeting we've had this meeting a lot. What's the vision? What's the roadmap? What's the user policies? What's the admin policies? I hate the minutia of policies and all this nonsense. When things work, there's no reason for it. My solution to something that is demonstrably broken is to write out how it should maybe work and try to follow that. I think that just the amount of time we've had and money we've spent trying to get to a point where we're going to, I mean, like, Max creating a policy is like the 15th iteration of someone that was going to create a policy, someone or a group that was going to create a policy, or a user group, or a group that was going to meet to form a committee to talk later about making a policy. But they're just not that hard to kind of like rough draft, and something would be better than nothing just because it's been decades and we haven't had anything to show for it. I'm just worried that if we just keep saying, like, we're just not going to make any motions or not going to put anything in writing until, like, we have a policy. I mean, I would like to trust Max, but it's just been, our trust has been more than exhausted with kicking this can down the road. And it has nothing to do with Max. I mean, like, I know Max is competent and capable and has produced a lot of good work, but this has just not been a priority for IT, and I'm not convinced that it is and will be. And so, yeah, I think just real common sense, low fruit, like it's just so common sense. Like, and if you aren't willing to second the motion or include that in Max's scope of work, that's fine, that's your opinion, but stop saying it. Stop saying, I feel that, you know, it's just not your opinion. And you can have a dissenting opinion. What bothers me is when you're willing to say easily, like, you should contact Esri, contact them, but you're not willing to refute in writing our specific instructions not to do that. I mean, that's literally a definition of hypocrisy.
I'll just offer some food for thought, is that throughout the course of my conversation today, I hope you've gotten the overall theme and vision, as we've kind of addressed, is empowering a user to do their job, empowering them with the tools to do their job for themselves. It's your data, you own it, right? And so if we're really talking about policy then, do we have a policy in place that is alternative to that, right? So if you're talking about, you should be an authorized caller to call in for Esri support, because that's your line of business. I don't want to figure that out for you. You do it, right? And that's just food for thought. That's
the policy in our website that allowed us to really, that's what set the roadmap for us to win the Sag Award. So, I mean, we're working on a policy. We already have a policy. Just read ours. It's right on the county website. Modify it for a larger organization. I mean, I guess that part is interesting to me, that because we address those issues. Who can contact tech support? Who's an admin and why? We've already done it. We've been fighting the battle. It's like the stuff is already there, but we're going to go reinvent it, and we're going to work. You know, and I guess I'm sure in this group they've talked a lot about duplication of efforts, redundancy in the organization, and it seems just to be more of that.
Is there a deadline for those policies, Max? I mean, or do you have like a time when we're supposed to get like a rough draft?
Well, it depends. I don't have a timeline for a rough draft at the moment, but I would like to see the policies that you have. So if I could get they're just on your website somewhere?
Posted prominently on the hub.
On our website? Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll take a look at those. I've also spoken with Mitch, and I'd like to see some policies from other locations as well to make sure that I don't miss anything. This is my focus now, so I hope to have at least a rough draft to you, I'd say by next Friday, a week from tomorrow. So obviously, you know, I'd like I'd like to be able to bump that around to all the department heads that are using this with, are working with GIS. And then once I can get that bumped around, I'd like to bring it before the advisory board so that everyone can see what everyone else has been working on, and we can start making that rough draft into a final draft and then finally enacting it. Because I want to make sure that we're accounting for everyone that uses GIS. I don't want it to be just the assessor's office that's creating this policy. I don't want it to be just the IT admin that's creating this policy. I don't want it to be just one department. Our whole focus is on collaboration. I want to make sure that we're actually following through with that.
Yeah, week from Friday is great. Thank you.
On that note, I do have what you requested as a motion. Whether we do a motion with that or not, I'm going to put it in. So after this meeting, I'd like to double check and make sure that I have it worded how you would like it.
And I'm not so concerned about the specific wording. I feel like you kind of understand the heart of what I was saying, just that we're not going to get our hands slapped for
It's my
asking
personal
something.
feeling that, well, not even a feeling, I don't think that anyone should be restricted regardless. It's Esri support. We don't pay a premium for it. It's there. Everyone should be able to use it, regardless of whether you're a department admin or a GIS user or consumer. Everyone should have access to that. So that's my intent and
So
approach.
just a quick housekeeping item then. It's my understanding then that the initial motion died for lack of a second, but Max has indicated that he's going to go back and clean up some stuff in the language of that email that gives some clarity and allows for folks to, quite frankly, do what we're paying for. I mean, we're paying
You're
for
paying
that
for it.
level of support right
Yeah.
now. We want to use it a lot.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And
You're paying for it.
I'm not familiar with the email you're referring to. Could you please send that to me?
Yeah, there was a couple of
Okay,
different
send them
help
all.
tickets. Yeah, we'll do.
I'll take a look at it. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, I want to thank you for your time. Thank our advisory board for their time, extra time today. I didn't plan on, I allotted that time for you, but I didn't really know how long the board would take. I have found the discussion absolutely fascinating, and I think we're on a path that we control, and I look forward, Mitch, to that final report. And again, my plan would be to work with Bob and Max to make sure that our next meeting, that we have that snapshot of the financials on, we were looking at 2022, but we may have to do a look back as well and get a close look at what the costs have been and will be moving forward, potentially, and just go from there. Is there anything else that we need to be focused on, or that I need to be focused on as we move forward?
Just get a quick recap of next steps.
Go ahead.
Just a question, what are the next steps from this effort? Having Mitch come and do this, what's next for?
The next steps in the process here will be to identify, well, I'll take the notes of the meetings that we shared over the last 2 days, and they will be broken down into furthering the executive summary. We've got findings as kind of the vanilla kind of blanket statements associated with the county. And then finally, the individual steps that each department should take individually in order to get there. So these are very specific point solutions based on our interviews that said this, this application X, Y, and Z would change the way we operate. Then on the back end, we take the steps necessary to get there.
For each department to figure out how to realize what's been put on paper.
Right.
Utilizing your assistance.
Yep, a prioritization plan to say, these are my recommendations. Okay, that's just what I see. I need you or you in your department to look at these recommendations, and we can go through it anytime you want. I'm always available. But then look at these recommendations and say, this one first, this one second, this one, maybe we don't even do it. Maybe we wipe it off the table. Maybe we just table it until these two are complete. But if I can get an individual departmental prioritization plan based on each one of these individual bullet points, we're off and running.
So what is the overall vision? What is the statement? I mean, I can gather that from looking at the Peoria and the Elgin, but we as a body agreed that we want to be that level. I think we do, but we haven't actually said that and committed to and understand what it takes to get there. That's what I'm concerned about. I don't feel like we have a vision. We want to be the world class or whatever it is that we decide, and this is how we want to interact with each other, like a statement of a vision of what we want and is that, do we want to, I mean, I feel frustrated because I don't know what it is that we want, and I don't see it written anywhere.
So, sorry, I know you probably have a lot to say to that, but I feel like something Mitch has said over and over again is something that, like, I think James has been saying for like a couple decades, is like just empower the users. Like the users know best about, you know, their specific thing they're trying to convey or their work file. And I think this board, and that's what my motion was all about, empower the users to do whatever they need to do, like get rid of their roadblocks. And so like, I think it's hard with vague examples, but a good one that we actually talked about yesterday, David, like in our meeting, and how like the discussion about your vision and what you want to do, like the other stuff falls in line. Like we were talking about we're talking about collaboration, and like who do you collaborate, who do you not collaborate? Well, we're starting to collaborate with APC because there's a lot of joint questions we can answer that we don't have to hypothesize about. And then one of the things we talked about was our startings of the APC assessor zoning valuation impact study, and just how like it's so easy to create this map with aggregate data, but it doesn't tell you anything until you can start doing analytics and start running like reports, and then it gets into insights in the actual product.
But you can still write that down. We want it to be where we're empowering our people or our departments to do what they need to do in a way that serves our constituents so they have the information that they need. It can be four sentences or whatever it needs to be, but I feel like we need a goal or a vision of what is it we're trying to do instead of overall, and then you can always go, and then once you have a vision and a statement of your mission, then we can always go back to it and say, does this meet what we're trying to do? I just feel like we don't have that for the data systems that we have in this county.
I
don't
agree.
know what their purposes are. Yeah, okay.
I would agree completely with that. I think here's what I propose. Me and Max can work on that together. Anyone else was welcome to join that conversation, if you'd like, Eric. And I think we keep it the simpler the better. Right? So 2 things in there, empowerment and collaboration. If you do those 2 things, right, we could spice it up with some business language in there, you know, some newfangled angle language, but the simpler the better. If we empower our users and we seek for collaboration.
And I think we need to talk about who our customers are. Who are we doing this for? Are we doing it for ourselves? Are we doing it for the people in the county? Are we doing it for the people in the country? Who is our customer? And it may be all the above, but I think it's important to spell that out because that helps drive your decisions.
Okay. In general, IT and GIS as a services-oriented role, our business objectives generally, now this is going to different from government organization, but I would say number 1, our services are meant to provide to internal constituents first. So we need to give you the power to do your job better now. It's your data, you own it, we can work together. And second, that would be anyone else outside of this organization, whether that be real estate, banks, or someone, John and Jane Q. citizen down the street. Those are all secondary. First is internal, second external.
And then we need to say that.
Yep, so empowerment, collaboration, and serving internal first, external second.
So, Mitch, you mentioned that you'd like to work together on that a little bit. I have actually a rough draft for a mission statement for County GIS. So I know we've got a little bit of time at 11:30 till noon. So if we could work on that then.
I think we can hammer it out, and the simpler the better.
And at this point, the audience that I have for that is employees, citizens, local municipalities, and businesses. So we do have that written down. As I've said a few times, I'm working on it. So if we could hammer that out a little bit more, then I can present that to the advisory board at the next meeting, or I could send that along with some of the policies I have next Friday.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Moving ahead sounds fantastic, and I hate to be this guy, but for the longest time I said we need a mission statement, right? We need a mission statement. I sat here and read public laws on the requirements to disclose public information when I received pushback that we couldn't be trusted not to share public information. And after so many conversations, I was actually, and I stood up there and commended Kavita or Max or whoever, I don't even know who did it, but we actually have a GIS mission statement. We've had it for like a while now, and it's not bad. It's pretty simple. I mean, it's not what I would write, but hey, like, not terrible. The presentation I gave at the last meeting was because now that we have one, and this is why I made that motion, we're really good about saying stuff and then like ignoring it and saying other stuff. Like, the problem is not that we have a mission statement, it's that we ignore it as much as we can. And that was my presentation about it. I'll read the mission statement. Our mission, this is prominently posted the very first thing on the county GIS website. Our mission statement is for the public to use this platform for exploring and downloading GIS data, downloading property information and aerial images, discovering and building maps from different data layers of your interest, getting to know more about your property parcel, address points, neighborhood, road network, zoning, subdivisions, voting, schools, section corners, waterways, and many more. With the help of GIS, let's achieve our goals together. And what I pointed out was that if you, and forget the minutia and details it goes into, let's just take the heart of it, is for the public to have a platform for exploring data. That's not what we've accomplished. It's like the opposite. We've given them misleading platforms, given them inferior reports, we've given them incomplete data sets, we filed court injunctions to get literally nonsense off of these systems. And so it's not that we don't, like, we seem to collectively realize we cannot deny the public information anymore, because that was our original goal of GIS, was like to stonewall the public and like look at some stuff ourselves. And now it's like, okay, the public clearly is a big user, you know, 500,000 visits to Beacon, more, 600,000 last year, millions of data points conveyed through Beacon. It's just like a huge part of what we do, but like the actual products under this mission statement don't do any of that stuff. So yeah, I think having a mission statement is great. I'm glad we have one, and if you want to change it better, you want to improve it, it should be a living mission statement, it should evolve, but like if we're not going to actually like think about what it means and have like demonstrable ways to determine whether we're actually accomplishing the mission, it's just more like I'd like to see us talk to tech support, and I'd like to see us fill a vision, but it's like, yeah. So anyway, we have one.
I appreciate that. We're going to look at that one, but I have one that I believe is much better already, and it's just a rough draft. And as far as all of that stuff not happening before, the first thing that I said when my attention was brought to the GIS solution that we have is the first thing that I said in our very first meeting was the first thing that we need to do is look at our mission statement, find out what we are saying that we are going to believe in, and then go with that and make sure that everything we do goes along with those lines. And I understand you've been hearing people, as you said, kicking the can down the street. The county has not had an IT project manager before. I'm here now, and it's been tasked to me by many different people to make sure that we do the best that we can for the county, its employees, and its citizens. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that we have a system that works for everyone. So give me a little bit of time, and we'll see what we can do.
I appreciate having a deadline. I think that definitely helps just get an idea of like what your time frame is. So thank you for that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? And if not, needing a motion.
Move to adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Oh, somebody want to second that?
Second.
Mitch, we're going to be next door
Okay.
for a quick meeting.